All right, good afternoon and welcome. Hello, hello, hello to all who are here with us today. Thank you for joining me. Okay, sorry, somebody wasn't on mute, so I just threw you on mute there. So hopefully you will be fine when you go to comment if you want to make a comment. Anyway, today, hello, we are talking about ourselves, me, myself, and I. Welcome to Relationship Series, Transformational Conversations, Lunchtime Conversations, and my favorite thing in the whole world, which is talking about relationships. A little bit about me. If you don't know me, my name is Genevieve. I'm a therapist in the province of Ontario. I've been working as a counselor for a little while now. Love it. Love working with people. And I get to, which is a super privilege, I get to work with people surrounding relationships every day, all day. And if you guys are joining, in, just mute your mics so that I'm getting feedback from someone. So mute your mics so that we don't get feedback. In any case, we are going to be talking today about relationships, me, myself, and I. So relationship with self. And I think it's by far one of the most important relationships, other than your relationship with God, and probably one of the most unaddressed relationships within our social context. Not so many people talking about how to cultivate what good relationships, healthy relationships with ourselves, or even promoting it as a value. So today we're going to get a chance to talk about that. And no wonder, right? No wonder everything is so touchy and hard sometimes. It's super messy because literally our relationship with ourselves are at the crux and foundation of everything that we do, including all the relationships that we have with others and other things. So today we get a chance to improve our lives on some way. So we're going to be talking about self. We want to operationalize the word self. And take a look at just sort of grounding ourselves in where we are. Self is a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection and reflective action. So the thing that we look at on the inside, the only thing that we can actually look into, because we are that person, we are that entity. We can't reflectively look into someone else, right? We don't have access to their consciousness, their subconscious thoughts, feelings, beliefs, ideas, messages, learnings, understandings, schemas. We don't have access to that. We only have access to that within ourselves. So I wanna maybe do a disclaimer, which I do every week. I'm not an expert, but I am very passionate about this topic. So I want us to sort of approach it in a way that allows us to be mindful and open and give ourselves a chance just to talk. So your opinions are welcome, your questions are welcome, your suggestions are welcome, all of it is welcome. We have a chat feature. Most of us know how to use Zoom. I'll be checking in on the chat. So if you want to throw your comments in the chat, please, 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 I welcome and invite them. And then of course, I'll give some times and whatnot. If I throw out a question, then I want you guys to, if you are in a place where you can do so, throw on your mic, open your mic, and just talk. Just say what you got to say. So yeah, really open to that. But again, I want us to be able to sort of talk about this in a way that that encourages open sharing. So we're not, cutting people down or what have you, but also with a mindful stance. So giving ourselves a chance to sort of pause and think and notice what's happening within us. So again, I'm not an expert, but I do have a passion for conversation, reflection, and introspection related to relationships of all kinds. Because again, I believe we were created for relationships, and that we find our greatest joy, our greatest sort of source of joy, our greatest source of purpose, our greatest source of pain sometimes, in the context of relationships. So that means if we can figure out ways to do better in relationships, then we're winning, right? So again, my name's Genevieve. If you guys want to throw your names and so on into the chat, I just want to see who's here with us today. Um, and we can just introduce ourselves. You can let me know a little bit about you. Um, I'm a therapist. I love to travel. I love therapy. I love teaching. I love a lot of things. So you can throw some things in there about yourself as well. This is our overview for today. Very quickly, we're going to look at some definitions of self as per different areas and contexts within history. We're going to look at some interesting findings, ask yourself some questions, some implications for relationships as it relates to self. We're going to do a personal challenge or personal takeaway like we do every week. I'll tell you about what we're doing next week. And then we can just sort of chat and have questions and answers however we wish. Hi, Kalenia. Thank you so much for being here. I know you love to travel. People interest you. Yes, girl, I'm feeling you. I'm so with you on that. People interest me too, most of all myself sometimes. So let's look at some important definitions of self. Again, the most important relationship you'll ever build. And where they come from. Okay, so historically, we look at philosophy, the Bible, society, spirituality. There's different forms of spirituality, psychology, ourselves as self-reporters. Um, uh, and I have my own definition down there because I thought it would be cool to throw in my own definition of self. So philosophically speaking, if we look at the old and ancient philosophers, I just threw one in here. Our true self is our soul. So Socrates, Plato, Descartes, Marx, like all the old philosophers. And Tasha, thank you so much for being here. Good to see you. Travel People Food. Hey, Joanne, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here as a mother and a wife. Yes. So we've got identity markers and roles here as we talk about the self. Okay, thank you so much for you guys for being here. Philosophy, our true self is our soul. In the Bible, it says our true self is actually imago Dei, created in the image of God and with the breath of God. So the Zoe of God, the spirit of God, that is our true self. The spirit is our true self. As per society, ourselves in our postmodern world and perhaps post-colonial world as well, ourselves are actually a social construction, so a makeup of ideas and illusions. Okay, so the self would be something like, our race. We are racialized people. That is a social construct, a construct created for the functioning of society. Okay. Hi, I'm a therapist in Brampton area. Thank you so much, Tanisha, for being here. Shout outs to you. Love to dance and travel. All right. Good to have you with us today. And then, so we're looking at sort of definitions of self. Psychologically speaking, self would be the fixed, this is a Freudian ideal. Self would be the fixed sum of our conscious and our subconscious thoughts and feelings. So Freud would say that our self is fixed, which is different from, say, Carl Jung, who would say that our self is both the self that we see and know, as well as the shadow self. So those are very sort of psychological ideas about self. And then emotionally speaking, our self would be the intangible identity or character or essential qualities that we develop over time and come to know, right? So we're born with them and we come to know about them over time. Simone, thank you so much for being here. Love to laugh, enjoy people watching, transformative experiences. Awesome. Friends and family enrich my life. Yes, thank you so much for being here with us to enrich us in our lives. Physically, our self would be our senses, so our five senses, our taste, smell, touch, hearing, sight. And so we perceive the world and evaluate the world, the world of matter and tangible things or physical things with that ability and that appearance. So those are some basic definitions of self. I'm sure you have heard of them. And then I have my definition of self. My definition of self is actually all parts of our beings living authentically. So authentically meaning that we are fully able to realize and understand those parts of self, as well as balance their expression. Okay, so I have a 5 alive system. A stands for authentic, and 5 stands for 5 parts of self. So emotionally, physically, psychologically, relationally, and spiritually. And so all of those parts working together in a balanced way means our full self. Okay, so that's my definition. I just thought I'd just throw them throw it out there because I have an integrative approach when it comes to self. And of course, hierarchy as well, because our spiritual self is our most important and fundamental part. Michael, thank you so much for being here, traveler, seeker of new experiences. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you here. Okay, some findings of that I thought would be cool for us to sort of explore. And maybe I just ask you, because I was reading up on it. I thought these points were kind of interesting. So I want to know how much time you guys spend alone, like in an average day, an average week. Like what percentage of time do you spend by yourself? Whether you're by yourself, not like watching TV, not like alone, solitude, silence kind of vibe. Like what is that? No, nothing, just by yourself, and you're not sleeping. What is that percentage of time do you think you spend it alone, not listening to music, not scrolling on social media, not watching something, not doing it, just alone by yourself in silence and solitude and not sleeping? I want you to throw that into the chat or throw your mic on and answer. There's two
Jenny,
questions here.
Like
Yeah,
so
go for
like
it.
is it I have a question before like I answer that. So like if I'm like, journaling or if I'm like thinking through stuff, like does it include that, or like what's included in that alone
Journaling
time?
counts.
Okay.
Journaling counts. Yeah, so that's alone with the self.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 15%.
15%. Okay. Yeah. We got 15%, about 15%. Joanne says 20%, 1 to 2 hours. So is that Simone, you said 2 hours, is that like a week, a day? Limited time alone, a lot when sleeping. Sleeping doesn't count. 30 minutes to an hour a day. Okay, that's I can't do the math real quick. I know 10% of the day is like 2.4 hours or something. Anyway, y'all do the math on that. I don't do math, okay? I do relationships. But yeah, just sort of thinking it through and taking a moment to sort of wonder, okay, yeah, how much is that time? 20% is actually a good amount of time. If that 20%, per day, per week, that's a good chunk of time. 15%, that's a good chunk of time, right? You're above a tithe. You're giving more than 10% of your time to yourself, right? So that's really great. When you go to sleep, yes. So maybe 30 minutes a day, Kalenia says. So that's awesome. So yeah, just sort of wondering about that. And so hold that for a second. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like yourself? And then how much do you know yourself? Those are two different questions and two different answers. So you can answer both, or you can answer either. Okay. So how much do you know yourself, or how much do you like yourself? Very different questions. I get it. But it usually comes out of a place of spending time alone with yourself, right? So the more time you spend alone is the more time you get to know yourself and then subsequently like yourself. Does everybody get that? Yeah? We're sort of, I hope we're in the same space here. So yeah, just take some time, check in and maybe think about that for a few seconds. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like yourself? 1 being, I don't like myself at all. I don't know myself at all. 10 being, I know myself and like myself to the utmost.
Hey, Jen.
Hey,
Hey, hey, girl. So I'll provide some feedback on that. I feel like at this point in my life, a lot of us can probably say that we enjoy our own company. Hopefully we enjoy our own company. We like certain things about ourselves and we understand certain areas that we have to work on. But for myself, because I haven't been married yet, and I keep hearing that once I get married, I'm going to learn a lot about myself even more. So I guess I'll have to relearn what I know about myself and if I like myself or if I like that version of me as well.
Yeah.
So something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So that's actually in connection relation to other people. So knowing and liking the self alone can change and evolve as we interact with other people, especially in close proximity, which is why marriage is such a formative experience, because we come into a mirror-like or reflective type of relationship with another person. And so we have to then challenge ourselves to know another, even if we don't know ourselves, or while we get to know more of ourselves through their eyes. It's a challenging experience and super fulfilling because it brings us closer to our true selves. It has to. There's no other way. And of course, marriage, like no other relationship, does that faster and in more at a more intense level. So yeah, that's awesome. I saw a comment in the chat. Like yourself at around an 8. Know yourself at around an 8. So we got some 8s, 9s, and 10s. Yeah, okay. So we like and know ourselves here in this space. And then of course, there's always room for growth. Yes, that's absolutely the truth. So we have very lofty ideas. If I were to answer this question, you'd probably wonder about me and what I do. So I won't answer it just yet. I'll throw out this last stat here, 60 to 85%. And I read a whole bunch of journal articles, and many different journals, because they focus on different things, they'll come out with different findings. But generally speaking, this is about the range that we find. 60 to 85% of people, clients that go to therapy, report after going through therapy that they have better mood, that they have better relationships, and that they have better work focus. So if they are in therapy and they're working on their self-esteem, that comes with self-awareness, self-confidence, self-worth, all those things. 60 to 85% of them afterwards report improvements in these 3 specific areas. So focus at work, better relationships, and better mood. Okay, so that is a great stat for us to know as it pertains to knowledge of the self and growing in knowledge of the self. And so here, so as we do we have another one? Like at an 8, no at a 6. Okay, yeah. So interesting, Michael. Thank you so much for that. So I'm around that area. Funny enough, I'm probably around that area. In the terms of knowing, I'm probably at around 4.5, which is interesting. But I do like what I know so far. So that's kind of cool, right? Even as we uncover more of ourselves and know more of ourselves, we can still embrace those pieces of ourselves and like them, like those pieces, right? The more we know, the more we can like. So yeah, that's really cool. So here's an exercise that I want you guys to do wherever you guys are, sitting, looking at the screen, not looking at the screen, listening to my voice. I want you to just sort of think now and about in the past. Okay, so here's a statement that I hear a lot, like, I am who I am. This is who I am. And I find that to be a very limiting statement, because who we really think and believe ourselves to be it's not static. It's not something that is fixed. It's not something that happens once and then it just kind of stays there and is stuck for like the rest of our existence. And we know that, right? Because intrinsically we witness ourselves behaving and acting and choosing different things as the years go by. And we also see that in other people. So I want to know about in the quiet. So in the quiet moments when you are alone, when you do find yourselves not sleeping, not watching TV, not listening to music, in those quiet moments, and even in this moment, if you can take a moment, if you can take a quiet moment, if you are, and I'll use this word lightly, but if you are courageous enough or brave enough to listen to what you are saying and thinking about yourself in a really honest way. And I'm wondering if you know about that, or even if you've thought about that, and if you've logged that. And I know Natasha said she was journaling, and that's actually a really great way to bring from up here at the inside outside, right? So what's going on inside of us and bringing it to the outside and really seeing it in plain sight. And what I find is that a lot of our thoughts and ideas that come up in those quiet moments, we actually want to silence. We actually don't really want to confront them. We don't want to really contend with them. And so we turn on music or we watch TV or something. We kind of want to run away. But I want to know, like, what happens in the quiet? Like, what thoughts come up for you in the quiet moments about yourself? Like, what do you say and think about yourself? And you can throw it in the chat, or you can throw your mic on and just sort of share what comes up, like truthfully. And it's we're sort of in an anonymous space, you know. If you don't, you can throw an anonymous on the chat if you want to. But yeah, just sort of what sort of, and I'll share mine as well, because I have a few that make me think, that put me sort of in a curious place. I'm like, wow, like where did that thought come from? And I don't see any in the chat, and I don't see any people throwing their mic on. So I'll share one with you that came up This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It was like a recurring thought. Like, it wasn't an honest thought. It wasn't a truthful thought. It wasn't life is hard. It was life is too hard. It's probably, maybe it's a little bit more than 4 years ago, but it was life is too hard. Like, life is too hard. Like, I'm struggling with this whole life thing. And I remember the thought coming up, and I wondered about what I thought of myself. Like, why would I come up with that thought? Not life is hard. We know life is hard. Life, like, there's going to be challenges, but life is too hard. And I had to take some time to go back in my own sort of belief system, my underlying belief system, and really capture what it is I thought of myself as I walked through this life that made it too hard. And I came up with this thought, or this idea about myself. And it was, at that time, I was wrestling with my level of confidence in my ability to handle life. So it wasn't that life was hard or too hard or whatever the case might be. It was really that what I was thinking of myself that brought on that idea. It was like, oh, I'm not capable, or I'm not confident enough. I'm not, I can't handle whatever is coming at me in life. And once I found that idea that I had about myself, or that belief that I had about myself, I was like, wait a minute, no, not true. And I dashed it away so quick. I was like, no, that's not a thing. And I was like, I can handle it. I can handle whatever comes my. And since that day, there was such a shift just in my approach to things, because I was just like, well, I can handle it. If it comes, I can do it, because I know that I can. I had been doing it, and I continue to do it, right? And so sometimes we have to take a look at the things that are coming up in our lives and really peel back the layers to see in the quiet. And this comes up in the quiet moments of introspection and reflection. Like, what are we actually saying about ourselves? What does it actually like, what do those things actually mean, for us? And I know we have, so this should be like this, or this should have happened by now, or this should be different, and so on. And sometimes that comes from a place of like fear, like I'm afraid, like I can't have, kind of thing, right? So we have to really look at what's going on inside. So yeah, what comes up? What comes up for you guys in quiet, if you dare to share? Oh, no one. We're silent on the airwaves. Okay. So maybe I'll pose another question. What would happen in your life if you really started to believe about yourself the things that you really want to believe about yourself? So like, what would be different
Can
in
you
your
repeat
life
that?
if you really believed at your core that you were like infinitely capable? I didn't hear which part.
I think there was a bit of issue with like the connection. So you were talking and it was like sounding like, so I missed a portion of what you said.
Okay, so the last part that I was saying was, what would happen if we really believed at the core of our being that we were infinitely capable of doing whatever we wanted to do, and that we were deserving of what we wanted? Like, if we knew that whatever we did, if we worked really hard, we would be able to get it. If we knew that we were worthy, we were deserving, we didn't have like those self-doubt issues, like, oh my goodness, am I worthy of this? Like, if those things weren't an issue, like, what would be different about our lives? How would we approach life differently? Like, what would happen in our lives? And this is just sort of a like wondering thought. I was thinking about it as I walked this morning, actually. But yeah, like, what would be different if you had a different thought or idea about yourself, about your capacity?
So I think it's two parts for me.
Yeah.
One
Mhm.
is, I think I would be bolder and more courageous.
Mm.
And I would be more prone to act quicker.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
specific to me, my reservation, because I can analyze something to death before I move forward. But that's just my particular bent. So that was my
Yeah.
first part. My second part is, in some ways, I think as believers, because we have the word which models for us exactly what you've said as far as limitlessness and capability and
Hey.
just do this.
Yeah.
But being silent kind of allows you to be honest with you about some
Yeah.
of the beliefs that we've picked up along the way that
Yep.
we don't necessarily give voice to, so
Mhm.
that it can try to rear its head, and hopefully when it rears its head, we can kind of address it, kind of like how you did when you were walking through your scenario.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. So in the quiet spaces, allowing ourselves to come up with the ideas that contradict like our like true identity, like our true self. Like we are infinitely, we're great, we're awesome, we can do all things. I can't remember what his name. I think it's D. Wallace or something like that. He wrote this little book, and he says everybody's capable of doing everything. Doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, what your color of your skin, what your nationality is, how much money your parents made, how much education your parents have. We're infinitely all capable of doing all things. And I read the book and I was like, whoa, like this guy's for real. And he he says exactly what you said, Natasha. Like, if we really understood, knew that, and believed that, and combated some of the thoughts and ideas that we've come across day to day, that refute that, then we would do so much. We would do so much more, and we would act more quickly, and we would do it bravely. We would
Yes.
courageously. We would do it confidently. We just go out and do it, and just be ourselves, right? um, and take up our space in the world, so to speak. I see some comments in the chat. I tell myself to pause because sometimes I don't realize how much I've achieved. Ooh, I love that. The pause, the pause. I love the pause. This is such a key point. Thank you so much, Tanasha. Is it Tanasha? Thank you so much, because sometimes we're moving so fast. We are moving so quickly, and we don't even realize that we've done so much, that we've accomplished so much, and we can't resonate with it, right? So sometimes we get to the point where like, oh man, we're having all these doubts, and someone else has to come and remind us and be like, no, that's not who you are. Remember, let's look at the evidence here, right? Remember all these things, all these points, all these experiences, all of this supporting evidence. Remember all that? Yeah, that's who you are. And that's what community does. That's what friends do. That's what relationships are helpful for, to, because it's not easy, maybe not easy, but it's often that we do forget. um Simone says that would fuel us to press on regardless of challenges in and around us. Yes, if we truly believed in who we were confident in that, we would take up our own space in the world, then we would press on regardless of challenges. Sometimes we face challenges and we just don't bother anymore. We just give up, or we see the fact that there could be a challenge and we don't even try. And that sometimes shows up in relationships as well, because we don't know ourselves, we haven't gotten to know ourselves, or we don't like ourselves. And so it's easy for us to say walk away from relationships, for us to avoid conflict resolution in relationships, for us to yeah, just give up instead of pressing through through the challenges to get to something better, right? Thank you so much for that, Simone. And Kalinia says, I agree, I would take more risks. Yes, risks. We got to be risk takers out here. Trust myself more and speak up more. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we get into that place where we're like, oh, who am I to be saying this? Who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be? And so we ask ourselves those questions instead of, who am I not to be saying this? If it's in me? Why can't I share it? Why can't other people, why are other people so much more better? So much more better, my goodness, the words. So much more worthy than I am to say this or to speak on this or to share this, right? So yeah, absolutely. Turning and changing our understanding of who we are. And that comes in that place of reflection and introspection, getting to know ourselves. And we're going to talk about how to do that better in a moment. So I want to say this piece because I think it's important. We were created for relationship, yes, but we aren't always that great in relationship because of our lack of or our lowered levels of self-awareness and self-accountability. Like so much is riding on us as in the way that we show up as individuals in relationships. And so much is riding on our self-esteem, our ability to know ourselves and like ourselves, right? So when we show up in relationships or relationship spaces, what kind of things come out? I think of boundaries. I think of boundaries in relationships because if we don't have knowledge of ourselves and who we are, then we may just allow people to treat us any way they want. And we may also treat others any way that we want or that we feel, right? So if we don't have great knowledge and understanding of who we are, of our worth, then we won't treat ourselves well and we won't treat others well. And then we'll allow others not to treat us well as well, okay? And so we have to be mindful of how many things are affected and impacted by our knowledge of self and our liking of self in the context of relationships with other people, right? If we don't like ourselves, we might not set boundaries in place. We might not express ourselves honestly. We might be like, oh, I don't want them to not be my friend anymore. I don't want him to not like me anymore. I don't want her to not like me anymore or her to see me in a particular way. So I'm not going to really share honestly what I feel or what I'm thinking. And it affects like our attitude or our mindset because, sometimes we get into that space where we're like, oh, I see something that they're doing or they got upset with me. And so I'm going to reject them before they reject me. Or, we get into all this weird stuff when it comes to relationships, instead of just being open, honest, and authentic, because we're not confident that we are going to be accepted as our full authentic self. One, because we haven't done it for ourselves. And that's a big thing. We have to get to that place as well. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So maybe I'll be mindful of the time. We'll move on. So make no mistake about it. Okay. This is why I said I was at a 4.5 in knowing of the self, because this is a reality. I love this image, the image of the iceberg when it comes to awareness. Okay. The amount that we know about ourselves is above the waterline. Okay. That is the amount that we know about ourselves. That is conscious knowledge of self. And it is significantly smaller in size than the portion underneath the waterline. That is the part that we do not know about ourselves. Okay. And I love the image because it is so powerfully true, honest, and a quick snapshot to remind us of how much we actually have access to. Okay. And let's be real, knowing our others and knowing ourselves is hard, deep, long-term work. I mean, we talk about, and we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks, actually, when we do long-term relationships. But we talk to people who have been married for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and they'll still say things like, oh, my husband is a mystery. Oh, my wife is a mystery. So much about him I don't know. So much about her I don't know. You've been together for 40, 50, 60 years, and there's so much that you don't. Yes, because knowing the self or others, and especially others, my goodness, if we can't even know ourselves to this capacity, how are we going to know others? It's long-term, deep, hard work. Okay, and it's not simple. We don't just because I know your favorite color doesn't mean I know where it comes from, what the all the little intricate pieces that are attached to that, what it means for you, what it's attached to, what are the triggers, I don't know all of that. I know your favorite color is green. Okay, so we have to be and I repeat, this is not simple. And again, I say it is not simple. I want you to type it into the chat if you really believe this. It is not simple to know the self and to know others. It is an ongoing work. Okay. And so I want us to really take a minute to take in our awareness, our levels of our belief in our awareness. Like to really sit with, like, do we really know ourselves at how much? No, we don't. Okay. But it is an ongoing process and it requires work. And I encourage us to do the work because it's so much fun. It is a cool adventure to like know the self and to know others. Yeah, I want to show us this. So the iceberg, again, my favorite, conscious is above the water, subconscious is below the water. And I often hear people say like things like, oh, and I heard this yesterday. It was like, oh, it's just that it's very justifying, right? It's just that, you know, this is the way I am, or it's just that people should understand that fill in the blank, or they should have known that, you know, this is the way to behave, or it's common sense that this should be a thing. And I want to be mindful as well that pertains to those kinds of statements, because they don't take, it's not simple. You're right, Simone. Thank you so much for that. And Tanasha, it's ongoing. We get better at loving ourselves. Yes, absolutely. And the idea that common sense is common, that people should just know how to be and how to act with all of the influences and ideas and underlying, with all this stuff beneath the surface. Like the idea that we should all have some kind of common understanding of how to be and be it's kind of maybe curious, right? It's like, well, I mean, if we really don't know what we don't know, then it would probably be best for us to be more curious and open with ourselves and empathic with ourselves and with others as we all grow together, rather than, well, you should just know, you should know how to be, you should know how to act, you should know how to talk to me, you should know, and get offended when other people approach us from their particular location with access to their particular consciousness, right? So yeah, just sort of, I mean, we just don't know what we don't know. And if we don't know that we don't know what we don't know, that's actually even more dangerous. I hope you guys caught that. I'm talking really quickly. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Common sense is not common, guys. We have to get to the point. It's not common for us, and it's not common for anybody else. We have to communicate. We have to talk about our needs. We have to express our wants and desires. We must. We have to share meanings. We must. Because that's the only way we're going to sustain relationship and enjoy the intimacy and the fulfillment and the purpose that is found in close connection and attachment with other people. This is literally what we're created for, and it is hard. And so I want us to invest in it, but also to challenge some of these narratives that we do have and intrinsically that we do believe, right? Because if all this stuff is beneath the surface, it's subconscious to ourselves, then we may not even know how we're showing up in the context of relationship. I may not even know that I frown a lot, and then other people think I'm angry or I'm mean. Like unless a friend of mine says, "Hey, Jen, you know, you frown when you sit down, and you know, you're at dinner or what have you," and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, I frowned. Thank you so much for telling me." And then I start to work on, because it's important to me to show up in a particular way, right? I start to work on my facial expressions, and maybe I might raise my eyebrows a little bit more often, right? So these are the things that help us to know ourselves better, to be in community with others, and also to grow in relationship. So I just threw out, and I'll send you guys, also throw your emails in the chat so that I can send you guys the replay of this. But I want you guys to see this, okay? Because I'm going to read through every single one in the subconscious area, because we all have this. And I don't know if we at all think of this. We know our thoughts and feelings are important for us to assess and address. We know our preferences and choices are important for us to share, and so on. We know about our plans and intentions, our desires, aspirations, memories, dreams, and so on, right? Okay, those are the conscious things. Now, has anybody ever sat down and thought about our repressed or denied feelings? The ones that were disallowed, say, in our family of origin, because you always had to be happy, so you had to go cry alone in your room. Like, has anybody thought about that? Those feelings that we deny, those parts of ourselves that we repress or cut off because they weren't acceptable to the people that we love and cared for us? Have we ever thought about our unacceptable desires or needs? The ones that didn't fit in, say, with our religious frameworks, that didn't fit in with maybe the image that our families wanted us to portray when we went out. Do we ever think about, and I'm sure insecurities and fears is a big one. I think those are drivers and big hindrances. I think a lot of us focus on those and try to uncover those. But even still, do we reframe them, right? Some of us use fear to as an identity and to actually justify our behaviors. Well, I didn't become, or I didn't take care of my family. And I've actually heard this and I empathize with it. I didn't take care of my family as a father because I was afraid I wouldn't be a good father. I've actually heard that. And so that is sort of a fear that has driven a behavior. And you've justified now the behavior from the fear, but the behavior itself is still fueled by fear. And the behavior itself is still worth taking a look at and deciding whether or not you want to change it, right? So insecurities and fears are a big thing. Unquestioned beliefs and prejudices, shameful experiences, automatic filtering, self-protective scripts, right? That's a big one. Unconscious or implicit learning. That's a big one. Things that we've understood for a long time and simply believed as truth because we've heard it like over and over, but it's not really true, right? We have to like sit down in the quiet alone by ourselves, getting to know ourselves to really come to the place where we know about these things, where we can uncover these things, these pieces that are extremely powerful drivers of our behaviors, of our approaches, of our mindsets, and how we show up in relationships with other people. Well-learned skills and habits, right? That's in our subconscious as well. We get up, we brush our teeth. And of course, our limbic system, our automatic processes, our brains, right? Our autonomic processes, our brains. So these are all subconscious. These are all below the water level. And I want you to consider this image and the corresponding categories. I want you to really consider it. There's a lot here, you know, and really think about like how much you've actually thought about this. Like, could you answer a question like, what are your repressed and denied feelings? What are the things that, I mean, unless you've been in therapy with me, you're probably not even, plug, you're probably not even considering these things, unless you've been in some psychodynamic therapy, right? But again, very important drivers to how we show up in the world and in life, right? And so I want us to just sort of take a moment. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just think about that. Any comments or questions about that? Any considerations as you sort of, any thoughts? Okay, you can throw your mics on and share if you'd like. Here's my these are my top five tips, I guess you can call them. And you guys can take them with you or share your own. I would love to hear yours. And maybe I'll say a little bit about where this comes from for me. Okay, so this is my my own sort of starting point when it came to dealing with myself and getting to know myself. So I set goals on knowing myself, getting to know different aspects of myself, getting to know, like, you know, what I'm really thinking and feeling, where some of my motivations really came from. And I grew up in an Afro-Caribbean home, and my very strong, I call him rough, West African father told me who I was. Okay, so I'm a princess. You know, he would say things like, "Oh, you don't swear. You don't swear because intelligent people don't swear." Like, he gave me a script on who I am, who I was. Thanks for having me, Hafsa. Noah, Tanasha, throw your email in the chat so that I can send you the replay, and then you can hear the end of it. yeah, he told me who I was, right? He told me I'm too beautiful, I'm worth too much to allow just any man to be a part of my life. He gave me a sense of self that was very heavily influenced by him and his way of seeing me. Okay, and that comes usually from our parents, usually where we grow up, and I think it helps us to ground ourselves in some of the ideas that we have not just adopted, but that we've promoted, right? And I think one of them is this whole idea of like setting goals, like being goal oriented. We do it at work and we do it at school and we do it in all these other areas, but we don't do it for relationships, which I find um, interesting. Like, why not set goals for your relationship? Why not have relationship goals? I know, people have this hashtag and whatnot, but literally having relationship goals, goals that say, hey, I want to know about this piece. I want to explore this part. I want to grow in this area. I find that I'm a little bit critical or judgmental or impatient. And, maybe I want to grow in patience. Maybe I want to grow in openness. Maybe I want to grow in empathy. Maybe I want to grow in having less rigid or less limiting thoughts. And so having goals for our relationship is so important as we get to know ourselves, right? Like most of us are just in this space where we're like, let it flow, like let things flow, like that weird thing. I don't think we should just let anything flow unless it's water flowing out of the tap, because it's careless when it comes to relationships. Like it's careless when it comes to ourselves. We are too important not to plan for. We are too important not to plan for it. Like if a baby is born, do we just say, oh, let it flow, let it grow? No, we don't. We plan for the baby. We make sure we have enough food for it. We have enough sustenance for it. Like think deeply about it for a second. Like you can't have a child or a spouse that you don't plan for, or that you don't take care of. You have to goals, right? So we have to be goals for ourselves, take ourselves seriously, speak well is another one. Speak well is really just self-talk, like our self-dialogue or self-monologue, whatever it is. It's getting old now, this like negative self-talk thing. Like we say some crazy things to ourselves that we would never say out loud to another person or about another person, because that other person would likely decide not to be in relationship with us anymore. And we say it to ourselves because we can't leave ourselves. But some of us actually do leave ourselves in our minds. We abandon ourselves, and then we just allow, life to just happen anyway. We've literally given up. And sometimes we can see when that happens. We become miserable or angry or upset. We're kind of like irritable all the time. We're not satisfied with anything. Nothing makes us happy. Oh my God, we've abandoned ourselves. We can't even enjoy life. We can't enjoy the fullness and the beauty of life anymore, because we've literally abandoned ourselves. So I want us to think about what we are saying to ourselves. You make a mistake. Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you should have known better. Oh man. I mean, just okay. Let's take a break. Okay. Let's start with the talk. Start saying things about yourself and to yourself that you actually want to hear, that will actually help you to move forward in a positive and encouraged way. Things that you would say to other people, perhaps, that might be helpful. And then see what happens. See how that changes and transforms how you feel. See how that changes and transforms how you feel. So set goals for yourself. Speak well of yourself. The next one is take care of yourself. Nobody else is responsible for taking care of you other than you. So if you have your full functioning faculties and capacity and you're above the age of, say, like 21, then it's time. Don't wait. Budget your money, stop blaming others for any missteps, and take those courageous responsibility steps and brave actions to taking care of yourself. Go to the dentist, go to the doctor, I don't know, eat properly, exercise, and for goodness sake, please go to sleep when you're tired. Take a shower if you're musty. Like, do things you need to do, because everything works better when you work and feel good. Okay, so take care of yourself. Find greatness. Find greatness is one for me. I know that not everybody believes in God. But for some, greater greatness, bigger than themselves, is like found in passionate work, or thrill seeking, or climbing mountains and observing beauty, the beauty of nature. And for others, it's a sense of purpose, or helping people, serving, pursuing creative works, or what have you. Going after goals and dreams. For me, this is God. God is greatness. God is greater than myself, right? There's a void on the inside of all of us. There's an opening, there's a hole, there's a space that I believe cannot be filled by ourselves, cannot be filled by money, it can't be filled by sex, it can't be filled by other people, it can't be filled by drugs or alcohol. It has to be filled by something more powerful than ourselves, bigger than ourselves. And it brings meaning and sort of a sense of purposefulness to our existence, and it keeps us going, it keeps us grounded in our value. And for me, that's God. And for others, that might be transcendence, leaving something behind, leaving a legacy, right? Leaving something for your generations and so on, if you don't necessarily believe in God. But again, I believe that we are infinitely small, yet we are infinitely powerful, and we can literally do anything. So finding greatness is helpful for finding identity and really learning to love our created being. And the last one for getting to know ourselves, or the last sort of point as we get to know ourselves, is heal, please. Whatever that means for you, whatever healing means for you, whatever you need to do to heal. It could be, forgiving someone else, forgiving others for letting you down. It could be dealing with trauma that you've experienced at the hands of others, violence or pain or something like that. It could be saying no. Healing could be saying no to other people. No more am I going to serve you or please you to my detriment. It may be going to see a therapist, going to counseling. It may be finding a support group, whatever it means for you. Heal, please. You're worth it. You deserve healing. You deserve to be healed. You deserve to have those internal wounds like patched up, so that you're not continuing to bleed out and continuing to sort of react out of that space of emotional dysregulation. So set goals for yourself. Speak well of yourself, take care of yourself, find greatness for yourself, and heal, please. There are 5 ways that you can start today, literally today. What's today? May, whatever day it is. You can literally you can literally do those things today to find, to get to know yourself better and to find a better place and position within yourself. So this is my challenge to you. What do you want to say today? What do you want to do today? I do this exercise at times, and I find it really helpful to get a mirror, like find a mirror, and to take a moment to look into your own eyes. Take a moment to look into your own eyes. If you have time right now, I don't have a mirror, but I have my cell phone, and you can do this with your camera as well on selfie mode. And just take a moment and just like look into your own eyes. Don't take a selfie. This is not selfie time. You can take a selfie if you want to, but look into your own, take a moment to look into your own eyes, to think, to reflect, and to decide like what you need to say to yourself. What do you need to hear for yourself in your own words today to move you forward, right? Or to bring you to a place where you can decide to speak better of yourself, or decide or commit to taking care of yourself, or healing. Maybe you need to apologize to yourself for saying all those things. Maybe you need to apologize to yourself for neglecting yourself for so long. Maybe you need to grieve the days and the times that you have spent not paying attention to yourself. Maybe you need to let go of some things, or encourage yourself, right? Hey, I have this thing that I've been holding on to for a long time. Maybe it's like an inner child wound, and you need to choose to let it go. I don't know, but I would encourage you to do the exercise and see what comes of it, and maybe even write something down. Write down, honestly, what comes to mind. And sometimes it might be helpful to think about what you might say, to someone else in your position. Like if you were feeling a certain way, what would you like someone to say to you? But say it to yourself, right? Choose to take on the reins and the responsibility to get to know yourself, to get to like yourself. And if you find things that you don't like, it's not the end of the world. Don't judge yourself. Don't criticize yourself. It's not the end of the world. It's just a matter of deciding, oh, okay, I see that I'm kind of angry. I'm kind of like critical. I'm kind of judgmental. And I'm talking to myself here because I've been doing this work over years and years and years. Okay? I've journaled every day of my life. I've probably missed maybe like 10 days in the last 5 to 10 years. Okay. And if I uncover something and I say, oh yeah, you know, I don't really like the way that I show up in this place. I don't really like the way that I'm talking here. I address it and I say, okay, well, you know, for the next 3 months, for the next 90 days, I'm challenging myself to focus in this area and build a skill or build a way of speaking and showing up or treating myself or treating others that I can actually buy into, that I can sign off on. And so again, it's not the end of the world if you discover or see something that is hard or that's not harmful, but that's hard to deal with or that's challenging. It's just a matter of, and you don't have to deal with everything at once. Again, guys, this is not like long, instantaneous stuff. This is long-term, long haul type of thing, okay? So yeah, I would challenge you to get a mirror, look yourself in the eyes and tell yourself what you need to hear today. And that's for you to do. Next week, we're going to be talking about power and abuse in relationships, which is another very important area. And sometimes we don't necessarily know what constitutes violence or abuse. And so we'll talk about that. It will be somewhat of a more sensitive conversation. And so I want us to approach it that way. Maybe not as like fun and fancy as these ones have been, but certainly educational, transformational as well. So I want you guys to come out for that. If you know anybody who may benefit from hearing or having the conversation or just being in this space with like-minded people who want to learn, invite them out and invite them to join and they can participate. And then of course, download the Mentiverse app. We'll be uploading all of our talks and chats and conversations and workshops to the Mentiverse app. You can catch them there. They should be all updated by this weekend. So check out the Mentiverse app. It's the Mentiverse, right? Universe of mental space or what have you, what we think about, what we talk about. And again, it'll be fun, you know, just to collaborate. There's a community on there if you want to join that. And then if you want to, you can fill out the survey for a chance to win. I would love to hear your feedback just about your experience here today, what's been helpful, what's not been helpful, and what might be beneficial going forward. Yeah, just your feedback. Questions are good too, and maybe what other topics you might want to talk about. So that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Do you guys have any questions or any comments or thoughts that you want to share before we jump off? I want to be mindful and respectful of your last hour and your time. But yeah, we have about 3 minutes left. So if you guys want to throw anything in the chat, or if you want to just throw your mic on and share, that would be awesome. And then we'll wind down in a couple minutes here. Any thoughts, comments, shares, questions? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna assume that those of us who are left here in the space are maybe otherwise occupied. So I will. I'll call it and say that we can sign off for today. But again, thank you guys so much for being here. Join us next week for another transformational conversation. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you guys in this relationships series, talking about real life stuff that maybe don't get a chance to talk about often enough. So I hope that you guys got something from today, that you'll take it with you, and that you will do the exercise, because I guarantee that something will shift and change on the inside of you. And get to know yourselves, to love yourselves, and your lives will be better for it. So you guys take good care. Have a great rest of the day. And thank you again for joining us for lunch. Bye, guys. Absolutely. You're so welcome.